Robert and Walt and I are visiting here today with Iris and Beck, and we just wanted to get a little bit of Iris's military record when he was in service, where he went in, training, this, that, and the other. So we're just going to sit around here and talk for a little bit and sort of make a record of it. Let's see, Iris, you were at Berry, weren't you?
I went, after I finished high school in 41, I went up to Berry and was enrolled there for a year and a half, you might say.
You in your sophomore year?
I was in my sophomore year when it was time for me to be drafted. In other words, when I got out of school in May or the early part of June, or 1st of June, that was ended up my college. I reported to my draft board, and on June the 3rd, 1943, was when I left from Fayetteville. My dad, as I remember it, Daddy and I, he carried me up there. I had to be there, as I remember, early in the morning, about 7:30 or 8 o'clock maybe, which was not early to a farmer, but early to some people. Yeah. But anyway, we got there, and I remember Farrell Sam's over standing around the drugstore there. But it was a Greyhound bus. They had backed up there, kind of along by the courthouse square. And I remember Daddy standing on the sidewalk, kind of going towards the courthouse.
Right on out where he usually parked his car,
right
probably.
Where he parked. He pulled in there, and I got off of that and went over and reported to a fellow that, I don't remember the man that was there or anything like that, but I do remember reporting to somebody there, and they loaded us on. And very few on the bus that I knew.
None of your classmates or any of them?
I couldn't think. I don't remember.
Don't recall any
of my classmates being on the bus that particular day when we were going. It was a pretty good bus load of fellows that caught the bus there that morning. And we went from there straight to Fort McPherson. And there we were processed, and we stayed there about a week, I guess, getting our uniforms and different inoculations, and I can remember getting shots and physical exams and tests to test you as to what they were going to assign you to. And of course, me being off of a farm, I didn't have much experience in anything other than maybe driving a truck or something like that. But anyway, they made this placement at Fort McPherson for the group, and they were building up the numbers. About a week, I can remember on Sunday, after I was inducted in on the 3rd, or there about the 3rd, I can remember going from on Sunday, Daddy and Mama came, and all the children. That was probably the saddest time for me. And I think back now and look at it, I think that children that were left there and Mom and Dad suffered more than the fellows that went off to the war. That's just the way it looked to me. Yeah. But anyway, after I got there on Monday morning, I can remember we loaded onto a L&N rail car. It was just across the road. We marched over there and got onto a rail troop train and hooked up with the L&N, and it carried us all the way to Battle Creek, Michigan. We went into Chicago first, I believe, and then switched over on another track and went out to Battle Creek. and that was where the Kellogg plant, where the cereal was made.
Yeah.
Kellogg, the cereal, and everything were made out there. And this was about the middle of June or last of June.
This is 43.
43. Well, I had 13 weeks of basic training, and they assigned us up there, and this was a military police training thing that they had set up there. And everybody there was been picked to be a military policeman that was in this particular training.
So you started out.
It started out from start to be a police attached to a unit and did the police work and traffic and all that for the thing. And we stayed there 13 weeks. Well, I think it was about a 12-week training period that we had, and then we had a week to get started, assigned us where we were going to be shipped to. And then the train backed in there to Fort Custer, where we were, and we marched down from the barracks and got on the train. And this was a troop train. It was, it seemed like to me it was 15 or 20 cars, and then they had the dining car in the middle, and all the soldiers would come one direction to feed each meal. They'd come back from the front and stand in the aisle and go back through the kitchen and sit down in the chair while the other crowd came down there and while they were eating, and then we'd march back and get our plate and go back to our seats. And that's the way we did all the way across the country. We went into Chicago, from Chicago through down to St. Louis, and from St. Louis straight out to California, through there, across the Rocky Mountains. It was it took us about a week to make that.
A week to go to California?
It was almost a week, because we pulled off on the side, and we'd wait maybe 4 or 5 hours sometime for a freight train that was delayed or something, and to get to our next place that we'd have to pull off and wait for the other traffic to come by on the rail. Yeah. And so it took a long time, but it was about a week before I got out there.
Back in those days, most freight, I guess, was on the rails rather than trucks like a lot of it is now. So
yeah,
probably
they
was the main.
It was a lot of freight going back and forth, and Army vehicles on flatbeds would be going in another direction from what I was going, and I don't know where they were going, anything about it, but it was just a lot of train traffic all the time on the train, and going out there. But I can remember when we left Battle Creek, it was snowing, so it had to be in the early October or either early November when we left. 13 weeks from June, middle of June, see, would put you close to then. That's in 43. I got out there, I say, somewhere a little before Thanksgiving or maybe a little after Thanksgiving, to California and Pittsburgh Replacement Depot. It was on the bay, up in the bay, where you'd go out through under the Golden Gate to get out to the Pacific. And we stayed there for 6 weeks. And for the 6 weeks, we didn't know where we were going. We didn't know what we were going to be, who we were going to be attached to, or anything. And we didn't know that until we got over to the island that we went to and found out what it was over there. They didn't tell us what we were going to do. We just knew we were going overseas.
The 24th Infantry Division was already over there?
Yeah, they had been, 24th had been at in the Hawaiian Islands, and they were old Army, regular Army Infantry Division. And they were in the Schofield Barracks when the Japanese bombed Pearl Harbor. And they lost a lot of men, and we were the ones that were replacing them after they had gone from there, and they had took the Millen Bay on British New Guinea, down off of Australia there. And that's where we landed our first, took us 30 days, zigzagging back and forth across the Pacific. And it was a big ship, and a lot of fellows on there. But they were assigned to different groups that were bivouacked somewhere in the British New Guinea area, and they let us off and there and told us we were going to the 24th, and I was attached to headquarters. And we handled all the movements of our troops when they moved with their trucks and artillery pieces and all that. We did all that trafficking, what roads were there. Most of it was just young roads, mud, everything. But it was a difficult time there getting adjusted to the temperature, the mosquitoes, the snakes, and every other lizards, and every other kind of thing.
Well, how was the food at that point in time? Were y'all eating a lot of K rations, or was they preparing meals?
We ate K rations on the ship. On the ship.
On the ship.
Some.
You gonna get him something to drink?
He has a cough. Oh, you can't drop the cough.
There's one thing that I want to ask you about. I heard it. I don't know whether Dad and them had written me something about it, that they were so impressed with Irish's record as an MP. They wanted to assign him to either a general or a bodyguard for him, but said that his age kept him from getting that job. You know.
Too young.
They would. I don't know whether it's an aide to a general, is a high-ranking army officer, and Irish was picked for that job, you know. And then after they found out his age, they said, well, he's not old enough to qualify for it.
Is that right?
But I don't know whether Dad and them or whoever told me about that. But he had a good record as an MP.
Well, I don't remember that. I remember several officers that we escorted around after the war.
Yeah,
But
I knew about that.
During the war, I didn't ever have to do any. I did stand guard at the general's headquarters.
Is that right? Yeah.
We had a general for the 24th Division.
Yeah.
But in MacArthur's headquarters, when we moved on from New Guinea.
She and let Robert move your car out of that. Get out in the big car. You'll
Just
move
go in
it.
the car.
I
Oh, you drive the other one, don't you?
Yeah, but
Let's go ahead.
if you'll just move his car then I can go pick it up.
Okay, anything complicated about it?
No, it ain't complicated.
Beck, you can drive his car.
You
Yeah,
drive my
yeah.
car. It drives just
Becky can
like
probably
yours.
drive
Beck,
better.
go ahead and drive.
Just go ahead and drive my car.
No, I keep remembering.
I don't know whether Dad and them, but somebody, Gray or somebody told me, says, Irish had made such a good MP, or made such a good record as an MP, they wanted to assign him to a general or his bodyguard or something. I don't know what it was, his security. I didn't know a lot about it, but I was impressed, you know, that they had picked you for it. Somebody had.
Bob, a quick question about the troop train a while ago. Was the troop train, did you have bunks in them to sleep at night, or was
No.
you sitting up all the way?
We were sitting up all the way. You could just lean them back, and then during the day you could straighten them up, and you'd have seats enough to.
Because at one time or another I was on both. After my basic training, I was at Blandon, Florida, and they gave us a week or 10 days or something furlough at America. They called it a delay en route, and gave us the train tickets to Atlanta in my case, and then had the orders for so many days at home, and then a train ticket on across the country. But we were catching regular civilian trains, but not sleepers. They are and sat up from here to California. I remember going through St. Louis, Memphis, which seemed like we traveled forever in
Yeah.
Memphis, and I thought that's just Tennessee, but of course Memphis right far out. And then I remember St. Louis,
Yeah.
Yeah.
and then we went on to California. But then coming back at one point when I came from California to Chicago and then down, I was on a troop train that actually had sort of bunks, or almost like a troop ship type thing.
Neither going nor coming.
Is
That
it?
we have any
And,
bumps
and
at all.
then from California, of course, there are all sorts of arrangements. And so coming back, then from California, I was on one of those fancy trains. I mean, I guess they ship you the best way they can and what they got at the time.
Yeah, yeah. Well, it wasn't, when our ship came back into there, coming back, it was about the same system. Hadn't changed.
I see.
Hadn't changed much
I
from the
see.
time that I went out.
I see.
When I went out there. But I really, that was an eye-opener to me of how they were able to feed that many men
Yeah.
on a train
Uh-huh.
and having them walking back and
Back and
forth.
forth.
You did a lot of walking.
Yeah.
And I guess that kept you in pretty good physical shape walking.
And something to do too.
Yeah,
Visit.
and it was an ordeal. But after we got out there, that was a rainy season for California. In the mud, I've never seen around the Pittsburgh depot there. We had boardwalks.
Yeah.
Where there was so much mud you couldn't keep your backs clean, you know, and all that. We just had all boards. We looked like these pallets that you put down to haul stuff
Load
on now. That's about what we had to walk from one building to the next. And the buildings were just one right after another
Yes.
that we slept in.
Yes.
But it was cold and rainy the 6 weeks we were in California. And I can remember that on Christmas was coming, and I had heard from home and that Gray was up at Mather Field up near Sacramento.
Right.
So I decided I'd hitchhike up there. Well, I
Yeah.
knew I was going to have a weekend off
Yeah.
right there at Christmas, over
Mhm.
Christmas Day.
Yeah.
And so I hitchhiked from the Pittsburgh Replacement Depot. Hitchhiked up Sacramento, and Aline and Gray's wife and another girl that was from Alabama, her husband up at Mather Field. They had gotten together some way or another and rented an apartment there in Sacramento.
I see.
And I went up there and ate lunch.
Yeah.
I didn't get to see Gray
Is that
because he had already shipped out to Yuma, Arizona. They had flown from Mather Field up there down to Yuma, Arizona to go overseas.
I see.
So he and I were about the same schedule of leaving the country,
I
but
see.
he was flying, I was on a troop ship.
Or hitchhiking.
Hitchhiking. But anyway, I hitchhiked up there, and I spent the night with him at their apartment
I see.
there in Sacramento.
Uh-huh.
And never did get to see Gray, but I got to talk with Aline and the girl that was with her. I've forgotten her name, but it was a sad time for a hitchhiker to go back. But you know, the people were just as nice to pick up. You never had to stand very long
Yeah.
alongside the road that you'd be picked up and
Yeah.
carried. It was people was just
Looking out. in the
looking
snow.
out for us, and,
Yeah.
and you didn't buy anything. If you were at the hotel, they gave me my lunch that day. Of course, they charged Allie and the girl, but they gave me my lunch. I didn't have to pay for a thing while I was gone. But I hitchhiked and got back to base in time to catch out. We knew we were going to be leaving right away, and so we the next morning they put us on trucks and hauled us down to the bay there, and we got on a barge. It was kind of like a ferry type thing that carried people up and down in the bay there, and we pulled into one of the docks there and got off of it and got onto the big troop ship, and I guess it had 12 to 15,000 boys on it. Looked like to me. It was just a pile of people on ship going overseas. And then that's when we landed at Millen Bay.
Right.
But the first action we saw, of course, they were still scrapping around there in British New Guinea.
Yeah.
But we staged out from there to up to Dutch New Guinea at Hollanda. There's a big airfield up there.
Yeah.
And they bombed up there, and then the airfield and everything. And then we went in to occupy that territory there. But very few Japanese that we saw there. We had a few prisoners of war there, but we didn't have enough to take to anywhere, say down to Australia or somewhere like that. But later on in the war, I did from the Philippines. I'd bring back on a LST. We'd put the prisoners down in the bottom of the LST and bring them back to a holding place back at New Guinea. And that's the way we got down there, and then they'd fly us back on a cargo plane going back up to the Philippines when we were up there. But we went into Hollanda without any resistance, you might say, of the Japanese. But we staged there for going to the Philippines. And I can remember MacArthur's headquarters was just the next camp over from where we were. And at the time that we left from there, and we all loaded onto the smaller ships, little APIs, Army personnel carriers, where they just drop the gangplanks down and the soldiers go off on the side. Some on LSTs. I was on an LST, my division, and some of the trucks and all and everything, and they had living spaces up on the sides to live in while you were on the water. But then we landed on, it was a long trip up there as I remember it. I know we didn't, I guess it was almost September before we got into, no, it was earlier than that. It was about June. I'd been in the Army about a year. It was about 1944, somewhere along in June, or maybe as early as May, that we went into Leyte to take that. And that's when MacArthur came and he returned to the Philippines. That's the first time he had been back. And we got to see him come marching ashore 4 or 5 days after we'd been landed there, and he had returned. And he came marching through the water there. I'm sure you've seen it on.
Yeah. Lots of times.
I shall return.
No, but that's when he returned. But he didn't set up headquarters there at all. They stayed on the ship pretty much till he could go back to Luzon. But after we got Leyte, we had some resistance there, a good bit of resistance there. Going across the island, I remember one night, it was raining, I mean it was raining. And they were shooting over us with artillery. And those concussion shells were going off up in the air above. And the shrapnel coming down was cutting your tent. I mean your hammock, you had a hammock, you'd have it tied to a old coconut tree over here and running across and had it down in a hole kind of out in the middle. And you cut those ropes and drop you down in that mud, down into the foxhole. And that was a bad time there, along there.
Where
That
was
was
it?
headquarters company. We wasn't on the front.
Where was it where the guy, it rained so much and you were crawling out of a ditch there, and your buddy was right side of you? There's a lot of Japs in there, and your buddy must have had a nightmare or something or other and woke up, and you had to get out of the ditch and coming up there, and he thought you was a Jap and took his machete and hitting at you.
Yeah.
You remember that?
Yeah.
Like to cut your head off there, he didn't know who you were.
That's right. He didn't know who I was.
Said you both of you were laying in a ditch and the water got coming in, and you said
had to move out.
you had to move out.
And he thought I was a Jap.
Yeah.
Yeah, I remember that.
He said he liked it. You said he liked you. Said you had a time telling him who you were.
Yeah.
Almost.
Well, you didn't want to talk too much long about that. 'cause they
The
was,
Japs
you
all
know,
in there.
yeah, they were, one morning in the chow line there, we had a sniper that was up in a tree over on the
Yeah.
side. He was shooting, and he got one boy in the line before they could get in. But that's just the way it was over there during that time. And then as we drove them on back towards the mountains, I got up on the top of the hill, and that's the day that I thought I saw Gray's planes, B-25s that were coming in bombing over in Ormond Bay, across the island, over on the other side of the island. And there's Japanese ships over there that was taking them off the island as we were coming in, trying to get them off. But they were bombing them. But we were at an outpost right up on the top of the mountain. And we could look down into the bay as they would come in over our lines and go right down in and drop on
Yeah,
the ship.
Gray sort of described something sort of what you're saying about a kind of a big lagoon bay-like area.
Yeah.
He said they had one plane that was shot down there, and a PBY came in and was able to pick him up. He said he flew around until they
Picked him up.
uh,
Well,
got him.
I couldn't tell. See, we could just see them going in, and then we hear the explosion. We never could see that far
Yeah.
out there in front from up where we were
Uh-huh.
at that particular time.
Yeah.
But I can remember that. It was just like it's just
Y'all probably were pretty close together at one time.
yeah at one time. But
Nowhere north.
he was up on another island flying in there
Yeah.
at that time. But I stayed there on Lady till we secured it, you might say. We came back and went up to Mindoro, and that was the island just between Luzon and Lady. It's a little small island. And by the time I got up there, they'd already fixed the airfield there, and they were flying B-24s up to Japan then. They already started bombing from there. And they had ships coming in there unloading bombs and everything. They just had trucks everywhere there. And we handled traffic, anything on the island there while we were there. But we stayed there to go down to Mindanao, down in the southern most island. And then we went down there, well, it must have been in July probably, of 44. Maybe, yeah, that's about when it was. Yeah, July of 44 was when I was down in Mindanao. And then the war ended while we were there. Now in Mindanao we had very little resistance down there. You just didn't see any Japanese down in that part. That was right down on the equator, you might say. Almost to the equator.
That was into 45.
No, that was in 44.
Or 44.
See, in August is when it ended. The war there ended when they dropped the bomb. You know, it was in August in 44 that it ended down there. And in 45.
Was it 44 when they dropped the bomb?
I was thinking 45.
I'm not sure myself.
Yeah, you're right. It was 45.
Yeah, 45.
That was 45 when
Yeah.
we got back there. That's right.
Yeah.
I skipped a year there.
And you went from there into Japan proper.
Occupational forces.
Yeah, occupational forces.
Uh-huh.
We went from there up to Shikoku Islands, a little island up there from Nagoya. Hiroshima was over to the left of Nagoya, and that was where the atomic bomb was dropped. I never did go over there, but a lot of them did that flew out over that. But I never did get to go over there. I didn't want to.
Yeah.
I stayed on the island, but I did get to escort the Russians around the island on a troop train. And not a troop train, but just a regular train that the Japanese were running. They were manning it then. And they went all the way around through the naval bases and all on that island, showing the Russians. I don't know why they were there, but they had two
entertaining them, huh?
entertaining them, I guess is what it was.
Well, what did you think of the Russian people that you saw at
They
that
were
time?
gruff. They were gruff with us.
Rough bunch of crap.
I heard you say one time, but they didn't like for you to not let them take pictures. They'd want to take pictures
Yeah.
and everything, and y'all had orders not to let them take pictures.
Yeah, they were
And they'd resent that.
determined that they were gonna take pictures. And we wouldn't, we never did,
Never would let them take them.
no. We had an interpreter, with our group, and he did all the talking to them. But, we were there just to back him up, mainly.
Yeah.
But we were just their escort to watch them as they went around.
I remember you saying something about when they were collecting all the guns and things from the population over there, that y'all just put them on barges and took them out and dumped them in the ocean.
No,
You didn't?
no, I don't remember
I was
that.
thinking,
That might have, I don't remember, I didn't have to do any of the, I remember that they had areas that they, brought the weapons to, and they already had them, there when we landed.
is there, they'd
Yeah.
already collected everything.
Yeah, they had been told ahead of time by the Japanese army of where it was supposed to be and everything. We never did have any trouble at all. I know the first day we got there, the biggest thing, we hit a typhoon going from Mindanao up there. We were on one of these little APIs, Army personnel. You just walk down a ramp, a gangplank to get off. And we stayed in after we landed. It was cold weather. In January, it was in the. It was a lot of part of 45.
How long were you there after the war ended?
After the war ended,
After they dropped the bomb, how
I
much
got
longer?
up. I got up there. See, I was down when it ended, when they dropped the bomb, and they finally signed the thing up there
In Tokyo Bay.
in Tokyo Bay. I came from there. We left there within a couple of 3 weeks. We got all our stuff together, and we went up there to occupy this island. My group did. I don't know how many other groups went to other islands and so forth, but they had them kind of divided up into groups of what they would do. And when we got there, all the guns and everything, we took over them, and I don't remember what was done with them. Now, we
Is that
could get
right?
into the guns. We got into the guns that we wanted and to take. We took them.
What was your island again?
Shikoku,
Shikoku.
and that's down right across from Magoa on the east side. And that's a long way south of Tokyo from where I was. Now you Robert, you were in,
I was in Brisbane, Australia most of the time after that. I was in Goodenough and then Milne Bay replacement depots. I've forgotten what they built in 6 replacement depots or something like that. They were replacement, it's just all waiting for it to be assigned.
yeah.
Yeah, the replacement depots.
Well, that's kind of what I went through when I first got there in
But
Milne Bay.
I was very lucky, I realized, to be sent on to Australia. Did you have trouble with malaria at some point?
Yeah,
Where were you? What stage?
Well, I
of your-
guess it was in Lady where I was with more mosquitoes there. In Lady, it seemed like to me. I can remember on guard duty, you just nearly had to wear a mosquito net down over you. And if you let it open, boy, they'd just eat you up.
I remember all the GI had a yellow color. We were
Yeah.
taking that out of it.
Yeah, well, we were taking that. That was one of the things
Just turned yellow.
we had to take that
Yeah.
all the way through, whether you had it or not.
Yeah.
That was to keep you from.
Well, we did too.
Well, I remember how bad you had it the first year back at Berry. You know, when I was rooming with you and John, I remember you having chills
Yeah.
then. How long did that last after you got
Well,
out, before you got rid of it?
A couple of years.
2 years?
Yeah, about right after 2 years. And then I got feeling a lot better. It seemed like it got out of my blood. But I still took Ativan on up a long time after then.
Is that right?
And I got a little subsistence from them, and the admin and all, they paid for that.
Uh-huh. And when you left over there coming home, how'd you get home?
We was on a ship that way. We got
A
we
big ship or
small one. It's real, not too big, but
something
it
about
wasn't
like a
nothing
Liberty
what
ship?
We went over on.
like a Liberty ship maybe?
Yeah, that's
Them
something.
things they turn out by the dozen.
Yeah,
That's
just-
what John came back on
That's what we
from
were on.
Bremerhaven. He said it took him, I forget now how many days to get from Bremerhaven to New York. He went over, you know, his ship would go in about 3 or 4 days, you
Yeah.
know, when he was aboard his at
Yeah.
Europa.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that was a big one.
Yeah.
yeah, that'll line 'em.
But our ship coming home, I remember we went over to Nagoya at the port over there, and that's where we got on this. It was a small ship compared to what we went over there on.
Yeah.
But they treated us nice on there. I mean, the Navy is as good as they could possibly
Did
do.
y'all bring any wounded back on your ship?
Wasn't
All of
any-
them were cleared out by then.
All of them was cleared out. We stayed there long enough to get them all.
Mm-hmm.
See, we didn't have any resistance going in Japan, so actually all those fellows already left our division from down in the Philippines.
Oh, Gray said that when he came back that they had a lot of wounded on there.
Oh,
And he said it smelled terrible.
Is that right? No, I didn't have that to go through. Yeah,
Do you remember what month you actually got out or
Yeah.
were coming home?
yeah, I got back to San Pedro, California is where we came back in, and we got right on a troop train that marched down right through San Pedro to the rail terminal there and got on the troop train there and came through.
And that was What month?
January, it was,
January the 1st.
yes, early part of January.
I see.
I left over there, well, I say early part. Yeah, it had to be the early part of January. 'Cause I left over there, I know it snowed on the ground at Nagoya when we got on that ship. 'Cause we caught a barge into a place and then we had to march down to the docks. It landed, pulled in at a place and we got out and we had to carry our duffel bags. Oh, I guess 4 or 5 blocks or something round into the port there to put them on everything that we brought back. But I didn't the Japanese people, I guess the main thing that we enjoyed most about the Japanese was the bathhouses. They
Yeah.
had these bathhouses, and the Japanese over on their side, they'd just turn over part of it to us, and we'd have a place to go get our baths and all, you know, and it was good to get clean again. After you've been,
Had to crawl in them ditches so long.
yeah, well, I mean, you know, it just,
Yeah.
it was soaking
Yeah,
warm.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I know.
That was most fun. And we'd when you were off duty, that's where you'd go to the bathhouse to get a bath.
Main recreation.
Yeah, that was recreation.
You said a while ago you didn't go into Hiroshima, was it? Did you see other Japanese cities while you?
No,
Did you get to
no,
Tokyo?
we didn't. I didn't. Other than those little towns on that island.
Around the island.
See, I didn't go on the mainland
I see.
till I got ready to ship out from
Then
Nagoya.
Nagoya.
That's right. But I got out of the army then. It's about January 14th, somewhere along there, that I got out. I came back to Fort Mac. They brought us all the way from there through Memphis, just like Robert was talking about why they got us up there, and got back to about on the same kind of train. And it's about the same deal, but they rushed you through there. They gave you your severance pay and all that. And I was so glad to get out.
Ruptured duck.
Ruptured.
You remember
Yeah.
that discharge
I
yellow?
wonder what happened to that. I don't know what happened to mine. I don't know what
I
happened
don't
to
know
that
what
thing.
happened to mine either. I may have it back there somewhere.
I may have it somewhere. I
But
don't know.
I went on back and they'd already started the semester up at Berry, and I went on back right immediately and went back into school up there.
Yeah.
And then I stayed in there till June, then I came home, and that's the summer we painted the house after, you know, all of us was there. You remember that summer. We had the most fun, I guess, painting that house.
That must have been when we had
We
that
built
picture
screens
of
to
all
put
of
on
us
the
made.
windows. Huh?
Yeah, you made those frames for the window
That's
screen?
right. We
Yeah.
made those frames for the, and
Uh-huh.
they were just crude, but they kept flies out.
Yeah.
Let the air in.
Bubba, would you have any desire to go back and see Hollandia and Milne Bay or
No.
Luzon or Leyte, the Philippines?
No,
Any
I,
interest at all?
no interest. I thought I wanted to go back to where the 24th. I'd heard so much about Hawaii.
Yeah.
And I thought I would want to go up to the Big Island and see where Schofield Barracks and all that was. But I'd heard so much about it when we were with those old timers that were in the 24th Division.
Yeah.
And but those line companies, I tell you, those line companies lived a hard life because they were right up there on the front,
Yeah.
and they lived a hard life.
Mm.
But I was lucky in a lot of ways.
You were in some rough times. So.
Ever getting there and back.
I remember Billy Perkins say the only person he ever saw, he saw you over there in the Philippines somewhere.
Yeah, I remember.
And he said, you were directing traffic out there or something. And said he recognized it. They're there down there. Said he came by and hollered at you.
Yeah.
I went overseas with Billy. We both
Is that right?
had basic down at Blanding. We were in
Yeah,
different
yeah.
battalions, but at the same time, and I think we were on the same troop ship going over. And then somewhere along Milne Bay, good enough was
Yeah.
separated.
But he was the only one that I
Yeah,
saw.
that's what Billy said about him.
I never did see
He
another
didn't see
person.
another soul in you.
Well,
What'd he say,
you
Ray?
give me the dates now that you went in and when you inducted and when you
Well,
discharged.
I went in on the 6th and the 3rd of 43. That's when I left. From
June
draft
3rd of
board.
43.
And then I got out in January 10th, I believe, of
45.
46.
46?
Yeah, I
Was
didn't
the
get
water
back
in
to
it?
46.
He was in the
Uh-huh.
occupation.
See, I was in the occupation.
Yeah, that's right.
And I didn't leave from over there. It was several days before Christmas. We were on the ship coming back on Christmas Day. You
Uh-huh.
know. But I got back. I guess we made better time than I thought we did. But by the days it was spent, but
Yeah.
it seemed like forever.
Forever.
And then after we got to San Pedro, California, I thought we never would get to Atlanta.
You were overseas, all told, more than 2 years then, weren't you?
Yeah. I was overseas from June. Let's see.
No, after your base.
After my basics, see, actually I left. After my basics, I left and went to California and got to California.
Was that around Christmas of 43 then? The end
That's
of that
right.
year when you
Chris-
saw Eileen and
That's right.
And
that
then
was
you
it.
didn't get back till Christmas of 45, so you
That's
were on
right.
2 years at least.
Yeah.
Couldn't
I-
46. Yeah, 45, I guess.
That's right. But it really was a. But I still think back of all the letters I got and hearing from the
Home
different
front.
people home front. I think they had probably. I just think of your mom and daddy in the rationing and the turmoil that was going on and the war work that was being carried on. It was just they went through.
It was sad for all
It was-
concerned. for mothers
Everybody
especially.
seemed to be involved
Yeah.
emotionally if not actively.
That's
Seems
right.
like
That's right.
Daddy sure listened to that news, every scrap of information he could get.
Yeah, well, you were there,
I was at home, I was in high school, see, I graduated
Yeah.
in 46.
Well, at times, does it seem now almost like that was another lifetime?
Yeah.
I mean, this is bringing a lot of it back, but then other times you just sort of
Yeah.
wonder if that was you that long ago.
It was, I kinda wonder sometimes whether it was or not, I don't know. It was different.
It's, I think about old Gray and him going through the war over there, and then his grandson marrying a Japanese girl.
Yeah,
Did they get married?
Home. No.
Talk about getting married, ain't they?
yeah.
So everything changes, doesn't it?
Yeah, everything changes. But, I don't know, just the people that I was in the army with, poor folks is the one that fought the war though.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You can say that again, it wasn't the rich folks.
It's even more so now.
Oh,
Yeah.
The Army
Yeah.
defends
Yeah.
us
Yeah.
all.
Yeah.
But we were all in it together though back then.
Yeah.
I wonder if we'd rally around
Hey,
everybody
Scotty.
around.
Hey, Scott.
Hey, Scott, your buddy.
Hey there, Scott.
Hi, my buddy.
Good.
Let me shake hands with you.
Glad to
That's
see
your
you.
cousin Robert.
Glad to see you.
Hi, Scott. Let me shake hands with you too, old buddy. Good to see you. Goodness, you're growing up.
Scott, a fine looking young man.
He
He's
sure
a good
is.
baseball player too, Al.
Yeah,
I
he is.
bet.
Takes after his cousin Robert in that respect.
Uh,
I was no good. I was no good at sports.
Did y'all
Scott, I'm
finish your
teasing.
interview?
Well, he's still got it on back.